All right, good morning, Gene. Will you read the roll?
Regent Bartel.
I would get halfway.
Regent Bailing. Regent Bradley. Regent Drew. Regent Evers. Regent Falbo. Regent Higgins.
Here.
Regent Rybar. Here. Regent Manydeed.
Here.
Regent Milner.
Here.
Regent Pointer.
Here.
Regent Pruitt.
Here.
Regent Roberts. Regent Smith.
Here.
Regent Tyler.
Here.
Regent Vasquez.
Here.
Regent Walsh. Regent Whitburn.
Here. Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. We have the minutes of the October, November, and December meetings, and they've been distributed. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have the Hospital Authority and Wisconsin Technical College System Board reports. Any questions on, comments on those? All right. We have kind of a very full agenda this morning. It includes some special visitors. This board is very pleased to welcome our keynote speaker. Most of us met her, got a chance to meet her last night. Molly Corbett Broad, president of the American Council on Education. She's here to present higher education at the crossroads. Multiple challenges, you know about those, leadership and innovation. I know we'll be looking forward to hearing what she has to say later, and welcome Molly. Later this morning, I expect to be a little more crowded on our visitors gallery as we look forward to the presentation of our 5th annual Regents Diversity Awards. At that time, we'll be recognizing and supporting those individuals and programs in the UW system that foster access and success in university life for historically unrepresented populations, and we'll welcome to the family, friends, and colleagues of our honorees. As mentioned, we'll have a full agenda, so let's first look ahead a little bit at our March agenda. That's our one-day deep dive. Brief heads up on the agenda for that day. We're going to have part 2 of our exploration of student success. Following yesterday's discussion that we looked a lot at retention and graduation rate numbers, next time we'll look at an overall big picture. Our second major topic at that meeting will be the biennial budget. Governor Walker presents his 2013-2014 budget recommendations on February 20th. So by the time our next get-together, we should have a much better sense of where we're at and what is required moving forward. In board news, earlier this week, Governor Walker's office announced that he's seeking applicants for a new student representative to serve on the Board of Regents. As you know, Regent Katie Pointer's 2-year term is due to expire on May 1st. In other news, we have a brief update on 2 chancellor searches that are ongoing. As you know, UW-Madison and UW-Eau Claire. First, at UW-Madison, as you know, interim Chancellor David Ward is due to complete his two-year interim appointment this summer. A national search to find a successor was launched last fall. UW-Madison history professor Dr. David McDonald chairs the 25-member search and screen committee. The committee is in the process of sifting and winnowing, somebody used those words, through the semifinalist pool from about 70 applicants. The committee will then forward a list of recommended finalists to President Riley and the committee of the Board of Regents. After consideration of that group, the finalists will be announced, and they will visit the campus for interviews and meetings. The full board is expected to vote on that selection at our April meeting. Dr. McDonald says that the applicants show strong administrative backgrounds and records of distinguished academic service. UW-Eau Claire is also well along in its search to identify a new chancellor. Gilles Bousquet of UW-Madison is serving as interim chancellor, of course. Following a similar process that is followed at UW-Madison, UW-Eau Claire's 21-member search and screen committee commenced a national search last fall, and things are progressing on schedule as there as well. Committee Chair Dr. Rima Yelker, a faculty member of the university's College of Business, reports the committee interviewed its semifinalist candidates late last month and will be meeting with President Riley and the Special Regent Committee on February 13th to present the proposed finalists. After the consideration of that group, finalists will be announced. They have an opportunity to visit UW-Eau Claire and meet with the members of the university community as well as community leaders. That will be followed by interviews with President Riley and the Regents Committee. The Chancellor designee for UW Eau Claire is also expected to be before the board at our April meeting in La Crosse. Things have been busy, obviously, on the legislative front. We had a new legislature sworn in, including 27 legislators who were in their first term. In recent weeks, system leaders have been reaching out and meeting with both new and returning lawmakers, particularly those serving on key committees dealing with UW. This includes visits by President Riley, members of the board, chancellors, and other UW staff, with members of the governor's staff, DOA Secretary Mike Hipsch, legislative leaders, members of the higher education committees, and the Joint Committee on Finance and Audit. In the days and weeks ahead, we'll continue to keep these lines of communication open. We've recently learned that Senator Harsdorf will be calling for an information meeting on next Wednesday, February 13th, to discuss the UW Task Force on Restructuring and Operating Flexibility. Regent Vice President Mike Falbo, who is chair of that task force, will be among those testifying next week. We should also note that day is a business day at the Capitol, so several regents and chancellors are likely to be there, along with most of the legislatures. In other Capitol activity, on March 6th, the UW, along with other higher education sectors, the Higher Education Aids Board, Representative Joan Ballweg and Senator Fred Risser, are planning to facilitate a financial aid forum, something like Financial Aid 101, for legislators and their staff. That's an important opportunity for us to talk about the financial need of our students, especially with the newer members of the legislature. Finally, I know President Riley likes to share news from around the system in his report, but I'm going to start things off today. You may have seen or heard the news recently that Ab Nicholas, founder and member of the Milwaukee investment firm Nicholas Company, has created a new foundation with a $50 million endowment in order to provide scholarships for selected Wisconsin high school basketball players to attend UW system institutions. Ab Nicholas played basketball for UW Madison in the late 1950s and was twice named to the All-Big Ten team. Talking to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel about the endowment, he said, quote, "I just believe in helping these kids get an education. Basketball at UW Madison made it possible for me to accomplish my goals, make a strong living, and enjoy what I do," unquote. Once the scholarship program is up and running, up to 250 players a year may benefit from his generosity. This could really make a big difference for a lot of people, so on behalf of the UW system, we certainly thank Ab for setting that endowment up. With that, I'll turn things over to Kevin. I will do that.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Good to see you again. Thank you, President Smith. I think many of you saw the story that ran in the Wall Street Journal on January 25th about our UW flexible option. At last look, the story had generated almost 180 reader comments, well above the norm for a typical education story in the Wall Street Journal, according to the reporter who wrote the story. What's more, our very unscientific tracking shows that the story collected more than 5,600 likes on Facebook and was tweeted more than 2,000 times. Definitely not business as usual, the reporter told us. Our UW Flex degree has also been featured on Southern California Public Radio and stories ranging from the National Review Online to the American Enterprise Institute as well. It was also the subject of considerable attention at the recent annual meeting of the Association of American Colleges and Universities in Atlanta. In fact, Senior Vice President Mark Nook and Rebecca Karoff were there, and they were invited to speak to the AAC&U's Board of Directors about the UW flexible option. They report that the board expressed strong praise for the UW's boldness in developing the UW flexible option as a public system of higher education, as well as that board's interest in following how we deliver on our promises of quality student learning. More important, it's clear from the nearly 650 people to date who have requested more information from UW Extension about the UW Flex option that this new approach has really struck a chord. UW Extension also reports that the target enrollment of 100 students for the UW Flexible option pilot that they're running has already been met. Good news all around, I think, about the Flex degree program. In some other news from around the system, UW Stout's Property Management undergraduate degree program has received a $1 million donation from the owner of a major U.S. property management company. Dean Widener, founder and owner of Widener Apartment Homes of Kirkland, Washington, made the donation to the Stout University Foundation, and it will be used to establish the Widener Center for Residential Property Management within the School of Hospitality Leadership in UW Stout's College of Management. The UW Stout program came to Mr. Widener's attention, and listen to this is the really neat part of the story, after his company recruited some of its graduates. This is somebody, Chuck, Chancellor Sorensen, who didn't have a connection. Yeah, that's right. It was your students who can take credit, because after he hired some of the students, he said, Mr. Widener, our initial recruiting efforts at UW Stout were rewarded with some outstanding students from the program that were well versed in our industry. It was, quote, it was not even 4 years ago that this board approved the program, so those students are obviously a quick study. So congratulations to Chancellor Sorensen and UW Stout campus community. UW La Crosse College of Business Administration has won a national award for making sure students learn the skills they need to enter the workplace. UWL was one of 4 institutions selected from a field of more than 3,000 to win the Council for Higher Education Accreditation's 2013 Award for Outstanding Institutional Practice in Student Learning Outcomes. According to Bruce May, who's Dean of the College of Business Administration at UWL, educators want students to master such areas as critical thinking and communications and ethics, so they make a, quote, curriculum map to ensure that those skills are included in the classroom. A student's progress in each of those skill sets is then tracked and assessed. The award was founded in 2005, and UW La Crosse's Business College is the first higher education institution in Wisconsin to receive the honor. So congratulations to Chancellor Gao and UW La Crosse. And Joe, be sure to call your mother and tell her that. In a new collaboration that will strengthen both business education and regional economic development, the United States Association for Small Business and Entrepreneurship has announced that it's moving its national headquarters to UW-Whitewater. This spring, that association, one of the most respected entrepreneurial support organizations in the world, will move to Timothy J. Highland Hall, home of UW-Whitewater's College of Business and Economics, a beautiful new building that Dick has on his campus. As he put it, quote, this is a unique opportunity for us to share our talents, expertise, and resources to enhance the student experience and grow the regional economy. It's hoped that the 3-year collaboration will increase regional economic development initiatives, encourage new research, and foster business development. This will have an immediate economic impact and long-term generational impact on our economy, said Jeff Vanny Van Hoven, an assistant professor of management. UW-Whitewater already has a strong reputation for excellence in entrepreneurship, and this should further enhance that reputation. So congratulations to Dick and the UW-Whitewater campus community. The UW River Falls Hudson Center was opened in 2010 to meet the educational needs of the thousands of adults in the St. Croix Valley, of, I think we know, the fastest growing part of the state. Those adults who have some college credit but no degree, by offering courses at times and in a location convenient for them. With fall 2012 enrollment at an all-time high of 414 students 2 years later, the center is apparently fulfilling its promise. In fact, the growth of existing programs, coupled with the addition of new programs, has created a need for expansion. So renovations are underway on an additional 44-seat classroom in the Hudson Center's current location, and that classroom will be ready for use during the spring 2013 semester. So way to go. Glad to hear about the expansion. In news from UW Parkside, interim provost Fred Ebide traveled to India last month, and while there, the former business dean at Parkside signed an exchange agreement with InSearch, a business management school in Pune, India. While UW Parkside and InSearch have had a working relationship for several years, these new exchanges will connect the two schools' Masters of Business Administration and Masters of Science in Computer and Information System degree programs. But that's not all that kept Fred busy while he was in India. He also served as keynote speaker at the International Conference on Innovative Practices for Business Excellence, where he addressed the changing landscape of American higher education, including, I should point out, a specific focus on the new Flex Option degree program. His address, as I'm told, was covered widely across South India, so congratulations to Dr. Ebide, Chancellor Debbie Ford, and UW Parkside community. In news from UW-Milwaukee, the UWM Real Estate Foundation has announced that ABB Inc. and the Zilber Property Group have entered into a letter of intent to develop a 3-story office building at UWM's Innovation Campus. The proposed 95,000 square foot building will house ABB's businesses operating in southeast Wisconsin. ABB is a leader in power and automation technologies that enable utility and industry customers to improve performance while lowering environmental impact. The new office represents a total of 350 jobs, including more than 100 engineers and scientists. This will be the first private development at Innovation Campus, which is a public-private partnership designed to provide industry and academia with a wide array of opportunities to collaborate on projects that will create jobs in Wisconsin, as well as provide opportunities for faculty and students to enhance their research portfolio. So this is all good news, and congratulations to Chancellor Mike Lovell and UW campus. UW-Madison reports that the Center for Investigating Healthy Minds at the Weissman Center is reaching out to veterans who served in Iraq and Afghanistan to participate in a wellness study that may help scientists discover new strategies for addressing post-traumatic stress disorder, or PSTD, that we are hearing so much about, unfortunately, with many thousands of veterans returning home from war theaters with it. It's estimated that conventional treatments like psychotherapy and medication are successful for only 50% of those treated now. Given the alarming increases in suicidal behavior in this population, Jack Nitschke, one of the study's principal investigators, says there's an urgent need to find new effective strategies to address the problem. The Center for Investigating Healthy Minds is offering free, complementary, and alternative programs to veterans as part of a pioneering research study, including a workshop featuring group discussions, breathing exercises, meditation, stretching, other techniques that are cost-effective and free of side effects and have the benefit of veterans being able to practice them on their own. It's very interesting and important works, and kudos to Chancellor Ward and the Madison community for undertaking it. This is one of the many efforts that we have going to welcome our veterans home and welcome them, we hope, many of them into the university. And you'll remember a couple of meetings back we had the whole long session devoted to our work with veterans. Did you know that, according to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, the average person in Wisconsin generates 4.7 pounds of trash each day and recycles only 1.9 pounds of that? Well, they're probably familiar with that little factoid at UW-Platteville. Platteville, which was named Wisconsin's 2012 Recycle Mania Grand Champion, now has been chosen to receive the 2013 Associated Recyclers of Wisconsin Outstanding Achievement in Recycling Award. The award will be presented later this month during the 2013 Wisconsin Integrated Resource Management Conference to be held in Green Bay. Recycle Mania is a competition for college and university recycling programs across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico to promote waste reduction activities on their campus communities. Last year, more than 600 schools were registered for this activity. UW-Platteville points out that winning the state Recycle Mania is one of just several ways the campus demonstrated its commitment to the environment in 2012. The university also began offering a new major in sustainable and renewable energy, and now presents a new series of honors called the Campus Sustainability Awards. So hats off to Chancellor Shields and the UW-Platteville campus, but Chancellor, be sure to recycle those hats after you take them on. So finally, from UW-Eau Claire, some news that you had to know would not escape my notice. Max Garland, professor of English and a widely published award-winning poet, essayist, and fiction writer, has been named the 2013-14 Wisconsin Poet Laureate by the Wisconsin Academy of Sciences, Arts, and Letters. During his 2-year term, Dr. Garland will promote poetry and creativity among all ages and act as an advocate for imaginative engagement in poetry and the other arts in Wisconsin. Dr. Garland notes that poetry has been vital to human culture since long before written language. In his own words, quote, "Although there are no signs of its going away, sometimes it's helpful to be reminded among all the chat, emails, updates, tweets, and dashed-off text messages that there is still this great ancient resource, poetry, that allows us to express what can't be deleted, what William Faulkner referred to as, quote, the old verities and truths of the heart," unquote. So congratulations to Dr. Garland and Interim Chancellor Bousquet and the whole UW-Eau Claire campus community on his appointment, and I thought in honor of his appointment I'd read you one of his poems.
It's a nice segue. That was nice.
This one is called Tegla. Seems appropriate for Wisconsin. It's about bowling, now and then. Even before the Middle Ages, the monks knew bowling was holy. Being monks, they rolled a stone toward a single club, a tegel it was called. 7,000 years ago, a boy was entombed near Memphis, his bowling gear sealed with him. Speaking of faith, my father, with a three-quarter backswing and the spin of a perfect wrist, would fling the ball 2 thin boards from the gutter, the ebonite hooking as it flew, trailing away and yet leaning inward with only the slightest rumble of complaint. It was soon after the war. No one was killing them. A thin smoke rose from the filter tips. Emblazoned across the shirts were the names of local repair shops for newly imagined appliances. I could barely lift the ball, 16 pounds, like something from the Shiloh battlefield we visited one spring. The lacquered pins, like plenty, clattered around us. In the 3rd century, being monks, they would prop the huge club in a corner of the monastery. If a peasant rolled his stone and felled it, all was fine. If the worshiper missed, the fault was sin, and he was advised to lead a better life. When it happens right, you know at the instant the ball is released. The body posed like an ornament on the hood of an old Mercury. Not a single pin falls alone. It's as if the strike occurred from the inside of the cluster, as if the ball were a coincidence, a mere reminder for the pins to fall and be swept into that brief, clean horizon from which my father would stride, fist clenched in triumph, blue cord straining in the wrist and forearm, like the veins in my own wrist as I write this to remember, twisting it slightly, admittedly, for love, the way the ball itself hurried and twisted, heavy and black as the holes they had not yet discovered in space, black as the brand new moon not a living soul had touched. And that's going. All right. Well, I think we're going on to introduce President Broad, and we look forward to that. So let me say a few words about Molly and her background. She stepped into the presidency of the American Council on Education in 2008. She is the first woman to lead that organization in its storied history. It was founded in 1918, and she really has a unique set of experiences in leadership in higher education. She came to ACE, as many of you know, from the University of North Carolina, where she served as president from 1997 to 2006, leading UNC through a period of unprecedented growth, including in minority enrollment. Previously, she served in several high-level positions within the California State University system as Senior Vice Chancellor for Administration and Finance from 1992 to 93, and then as Executive Vice Chancellor and Chief Operating Officer from 1993 until her election as UNC President. Earlier, Molly served as the Chief Executive Officer for Arizona's 3-campus university system. That was from 1985 to 92, and in a succession of administrative posts at Syracuse University from 1971 to 1985. So as she and I were leaving Brigham House this morning and I was clearing the snow off the car, she said, just like Syracuse. Molly has written and spoken widely on strategic planning for higher education, K-16 partnerships, information technology, globalization, and biotechnology. She currently holds seats on the boards of the Public Broadcasting Service and the Parsons Corporation. She is past chair of the National Association of State Universities and Land-Grant Colleges and past chair of the Internet 2 Board of Trustees and past president of the International Council for Distance Education. We are very honored to have her here to address the Board of Regents on higher education at the crossroads, multiple challenges, leadership, and innovation. We really appreciate her willingness to do the problem travel that she had to do to get here, and now we hope to get back easily to her home on the East Coast. So, Molly, welcome. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks very much. I am a huge fan of Kevin Riley and of the University of Wisconsin. From UNC, we think about a sister system that is In the same vein, it is the University of Wisconsin, with the exception of football fields and basketball courts. And listening to the array of achievements, it is really impressive. The wide array of things that UW campuses are pursuing and succeeding in. It is heartening to hear of all of that good work. With the expert help of Chris, we're going to try to move so I can use some graphics and some visuals and some video to try to make some points. Because I think we are experiencing a confluence of forces of change, the likes of which I have not experienced at any time in my professional lifetime. I think we are approaching a point of inflection. We're experiencing tremendous financial pressures, and they're coming from all directions. Tuition problems, state and federal funding issues, philanthropy and investment returns, all applying financial pressure. We've become much more connected to the federal government. And because our governance system in this country, as distinct from most other places in the world, is one in which there is autonomy in the governance, and our federal government is not a ministry as it is elsewhere. But we have become increasingly dependent upon federal funding for financial aid and for research. And I was reminded a couple of days ago by the staff director in the Senate Health Committee that what the golden rule is, that he who holds the gold rules. So the financial issues are troubling for us and difficult to manage. We're also seeing a profound change in the demographics of who comprises the enrollment in American higher education. We see these back-to-school stories in the media where, by and large, it is presented as mom and dad taking a son or daughter to a campus with a lot of electronic equipment, moving into a residence facility, and growing up from adolescence to adulthood. But the truth is that they represent just a little more than a quarter of the students in American higher education today. The overwhelming numbers of students are what we're calling post-traditional, and I'll come back to that in a minute. It's really forcing some pressures on our academic model as well. We think of the world of higher education as an iron triangle in which the issues of cost, of access, and of quality are fixed, and that you cannot alter one without altering the other. The belief is you can't improve quality unless you also increase cost. And you can't expand access without increasing cost. Well, I think all of that iron triangle issue is now being challenged in the face of all of these pressures. And it's precipitating some very interesting innovations and advances in the teaching and learning process that come from the advancements in information technology and computer science and cognitive science and in other areas of universities. And we probably shouldn't be surprised, because our universities have been the cradle for the development of these advanced technology ideas, advanced networking capabilities. And when we think about it, it is some of those bright university graduates that went on to develop the companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, that have become the companies with the largest market cap in our country. And I guess we should say, is now the time that some of that expertise developed within the university should now be applied to the university itself. Chris, if you will advance the slides. Moody's, the rating agency, issued an interesting report about 2 weeks ago that I think is very, very revealing, because they are downgrading institutions of higher education. And if you can read this, what they are asserting is that U.S. higher education is at a critical juncture in the evolution of its business model. Even the market-leading institutions have diminished prospects for revenue growth, and most universities are going to have to lower their cost structure. This comes as not business as usual for American higher education. Proceeding to the next slide. So what is causing them to do this downgrade? And it's primarily the economic pressures, the slowness of the recovery of our economy, and the heightened political and public pressures that we are experiencing both from the state and federal government. In this next graphic, I want to address what is going on in the constraints to the growth in tuition. And what you can see from this graphic, with private universities on the upper part and public on the lower, is that tuition dependence has become central to virtually all kinds of institutions in our country. You know, we used to think that we had roughly 3 different kinds of universities and colleges in America. We had those that were tuition dependent, we had those that were state tax support dependent, and we had those that were philanthropy dependent. And what we are seeing in this squeeze is that more and more institutions are tuition dependent. It's also the case that we've experienced a decline in family income. The Federal Reserve says that average household income has declined by 8% since 1992. And more low-income students are the ones that are populating our colleges, and we have doubled the number of students who are eligible and receiving the Pell Grant, and now 9.7 million students, about half of all students in American higher education, are recipients of the Pell Grant. In this next graphic, I think it's very interesting for us to reflect on the relationship for public institutions between state support and tuition. And before 2003, as you can see, the state spent more, made more of an investment than resulted from tuition. And in 2003, those 2 lines crossed. And as you can see from this graphic, the gap has continued to grow, and indeed grow at an accelerating pace. So instead of the state providing most of the revenue to support its public institutions, most of them are now increasingly dependent upon tuition. And now tuition is almost twice the relative share of revenue for public institutions. So public institutions are as much market-driven as private institutions are. Public institutions still remain to be a lower price point than for private institutions. But the strategies of the last year, since the 2008 recession, of raising tuition by ever larger amounts is not a sustainable strategy. So over the previous 5 years, the average increase in tuition was approaching 7% per year. And this year, for the first time, we have seen a significant decrease in the rate of increase in tuition, now down to 2.7%. There are lots of differences among different types of institutions. The dependence upon financial aid from the government is differential for flagship institutions. Would you move to the next slide? And this is a reflection of our growing dependence on the Pell Grant program. And you can see that Moody's ratings are very much linked to the dependence on Pell. And if you will move to the next slide. I thought this was a very interesting way to capture the diversity and what's called the hidden divide between and among institutions of higher education in the U.S. And I draw your attention to the AAA rating, that first list. Institutions with a AAA rating admit 13% of those students that apply for admission, as compared with the BAA rated institutions. They admit 67% of all students that apply for admission. Then the AAA institutions, half of the students that they admit actually enroll in their institutions. And the BAA, only about half that, 24% of the students that they admit actually enroll. The net tuition per person is modestly different, $21,000 compared to $18,000. But the educational expenses are dramatically different. The AAA rated spend $75,000 per student per year, as compared with $21,000 per student per year for those that are rated BAA. And look at the bottom line. The total financial resources per student is over $1 million per student in the AAA rated institutions, and only $23,000 for those that are rated BAA. So at both ends of the financial spectrum and the student selectivity spectrum, we are seeing very substantial hidden differences from one institution to the next. And these resource disparities have been accelerating in recent years. I'd like to move on in the next slide to issues around the student loan burden. As we've all read in the press, student loans have now exceeded $1 trillion in outstanding student debt. The federal loan volume has doubled since 2003, doubled. And the default rates have also doubled since 2003. They've gone from 4.5% to over 9%. So student dependence on Pell Grants and student loans are also translating to institutional dependence. These are the two major programs that are funded by the federal government, and we have been very fortunate in the last 4 years to see those programs expanded and fully funded. As we look to the future horizon, and particularly if this sequester is implemented, that we are going to be very much at risk for declining support for the Pell program and an increasing interest rate being levied against student loans. I think these are all the kinds of forces that have caused the Moody's rating agency to sound the alarm bells about the cost structure, the financial structure. But our forces of change are more than all of these financial dimensions. In the next slide, I put the cover of Richard Aram's book on Academically Adrift. My guess is most of you have heard about this book, and it has caused a stir, for sure. And we may argue about the methodologies that were used and the merits and the shortcomings of this book, but nonetheless, it is a sounding bell that we need to be paying much greater attention to raising the quality of the academic achievement and our academic models. The evidence suggests that we are not meeting the traditional goals very fully, those goals of developing a broad array of intellectual skills, specialized knowledge in the major areas of a student's concentration, a demonstrated ability to communicate in writing their knowledge and their ability to apply that knowledge in a real-world environment. These are exactly the sorts of things that Kevin was talking about being discussed at the recent AAC&U meeting, that a college certificate or credential or degree cannot be viewed as comparable to, say, a Chinese menu, where if you have some from column A and some from column B and some from column C, you tie them all together and say you have a degree or credential. We must do a better job at deepening learning and enhancing these results. Kevin also mentioned the recent open letter to college and university presidents that we issued about 10 days ago on raising education attainment in our country. And it has gotten very interesting responses. It is, excuse me, essentially from the academy to the academy. Because of the way higher education is governed, it is much more effective for us to do this unto ourselves, if I can put it that way, than to have it done unto us by government or other outside forces. We hope that this report on improving education attainment will continue to bring new levels of commitment across American higher education to raising the quality of our programs. Let me turn now to the changing demographics. And I mentioned this earlier, but I think most of us have not really focused in on who defines the enrollment in American higher education. As you can see, only 15% of those students attend four-year colleges full-time and live on campus. And 43% are attending two-year colleges. 37% enrolled part-time. It shows that our students are getting older, taking longer to finish, they're working more, they have their own kids, and they are seeking credentials that have labor market recognition. This is why we are calling these students that now represent the overwhelming numbers of students. We're calling them post-traditional learners, because somehow the phrase non-traditional learners doesn't seem to apply when they are the majority and more of our students. The bottom line, I think, is that there is no one-size-fits-all in how we can serve students who are 18 years old and coming to campus as a part of a deep experience of support and enlightenment and growing up. And a lot of this is caused, as the next visual will show, it's being driven by the demands of the economy and the demands of the marketplace, as talent pools, massive talent pools, are being created all around the world. And the race up the value chain to sustain economic prosperity and to ensure family-sustaining wage rates is causing us to increasingly look to higher education to meet that challenge. As this graphic shows, most of the jobs now are routine work, especially in the U.S. What's in red in this chart is the stuff that's being done by machines, not by people. And I think we all can anticipate that that share is going to continue to grow. And so the race is to do the more creative work, the design, the marketing, and the manufacturing. It is an interesting part of this confluence. And in this next visual, Tony Carnevale, who's a very distinguished labor economist at Georgetown University, has done a lot of this research. But over the last 4 decades, if you would click again and again, thank you, what this shows is that the number of jobs and the percentage of jobs for people without a high school diploma has fallen from 32% to 10%. A similar kind of fall in the percentage of jobs if you only have a high school diploma. And as you can see, as the arrows turn from red going down and green going up, it is those jobs that require some college or degree or a bachelor's degree and higher. This is driving up the demand for higher education by those post-traditional learners so that they can have greater earning power. And the unemployment rate, if you have a college degree, is just about half of the unemployment rate if you have only a high school diploma. In this next slide, I took a snapshot of your state and looked at where you rank in some of the kinds of jobs with levels of education. The fact that you are 40th with jobs for high school dropouts is good news. That means that most of the jobs in Wisconsin cannot be held by individuals who have dropped out of high school. But you can see, by and large, Wisconsin's right in the middle in the nation of the kinds of jobs that require various kinds of higher education. All of this coming together, I think, is persuasive that business as usual is just not in the future cards and that we must innovate. And so at this point, I'm going to turn to what innovation is beginning to look like in American higher education. So this is how we think about innovation at ACE. It is the intentional discovery and application of new institutional, instructional, credentialing, and financial models. Each of those models, instructional, credentialing, financial, are essential for us to maintain and increase quality and to reduce costs. So I want to close these remarks by talking about 3 of the most promising models. And let me begin with this next visual that's about MOOCs. It's a model for delivering learning content online, virtually, for any person at no cost and no limitation in the number of students who can be registered for the class. They're open and free, and you may have read recently that ACE is evaluating the college credit worthiness of these MOOCs from all 3 of them, Coursera, Udacity, and the edX, which is the MIT Harvard platform for MOOCs. What you see in these MOOCs are creative uses of videos, blogs, discussion boards, game interfaces, and social media. Will you run the film? This was
Daphne
a
Kohler, a
PBS,
computer science
special.
professor at Stanford, is one of Coursera's founders. I think by opening up education for free to everyone around the world, we're going to turn education, high-quality education, from a privilege to a basic human right, so that anyone, no matter their social, economic, or family circumstances, has access to the best education.
Okay, welcome to 6002.
Those lofty goals, the experience of teaching thousands of students, and the possibility of future profits are what got these courses going. Professors from top universities are signing up, even though they are not paid by the providers. Eventually, universities may share revenues they receive, when there are revenues, with the professors. And those star professors have inspired intense student interest in the courses, says Coursera's other co-founder, Andrew Ng.
Most people today will never have access to a Princeton, Stanford, Caltech class. But now, if you wake up tomorrow morning and you decide you want to take a Caltech class, you can just sign up for one, and it's free.
Math teacher Salman Khan started providing free online classes in 2010 out of his house, arguing that new approaches to teaching were needed. He inspired Stanford professor Sebastian Thrun and colleague Peter Novick to put a course on artificial intelligence online just last year.
And to our surprise, 160,000 students signed up. We managed to graduate 23,000 students at Stanford graduate level quality in a specialized subject area called artificial intelligence, which means Peter and I taught more students than all the professors in the world combined in the same subject area.
Were you amazed by this, or did you expect it?
I was blown away, and it changed my life.
After that success, Thrun founded Udacity, a fast-growing startup in Palo Alto, financed with venture capital money, offering classes in science, technology, engineering, and math. Universities came on board, hoping to reach more students than they previously could and to improve instruction both on and off campus using online technology. Thrun says early results are promising.
We have some data on how it works. For some of the classes, we've shown that the average point score of students taking those classes online is higher, significantly higher than taking in a classroom. That's kind of mind-blowing.
He says teachers are learning new strategies that are more effective than the traditional lecture.
It's not my lecturing that changes the student, but it's the student exercise. So our courses feel very much like video games, where you're being bombarded with exercise after exercise after exercise. That's very different from the way I teach at Stanford, where I'm much more in lecturing mode.
The next promising innovation is not in the classroom, but it is identifying patterns of student behavior and conduct that will help them facilitate completion of their degree more rapidly, more efficiently, identify students who may be at risk of dropping out or flunking the course. Big data is something we all live with, because that's how Amazon knows all they know about us and will shoot us an email when a new book is published that they think we might be interested in based upon our past behavior. The banks use it. Big data and data mining have grown in every part of the commercial world, and now it is coming to American higher education in ways that will enable instructors and counselors to facilitate the success of students. Let's move to this one on analytics.
Trying to register for classes when they're full, and kind of just picking and choosing classes that I need in order to transfer.
Sherpa is essentially, at its core, it's a recommendation engine. Just as if you go out to Amazon, Amazon will recommend books for you based on what it knows about you, what books you've purchased in the past. The Genius Bar in iTunes will make recommendations for music. So we want to build the exact same thing for our students, so that Sherpa will know things about you that make you very unique. You will have different needs than somebody else, and Sherpa will make recommendations for courses, services, and information, with really the primary goal being to help you succeed as a student at our colleges.
Well, the thing I like the most is its schedule builder, because it gives you that pertinent information right there as you're registering.
I like the fact that Sherpa
helps narrow down the search for classes. I can put the times that I'm available.
The My Academic Plan on my site kind of helps you do that. You choose, like, are you going to a four-year institution, are you getting like an AA degree, and then it'll show you all the classes you need to take, and it has like a checklist with requirements. And as long as you follow through with the plan, you're good.
My assistant clipped off the part of the students that were saying registering for courses sucks. The third really promising use of technology is the one right here at the University of Wisconsin in the Flex option, because it incorporates many of the emerging innovations that are enabled by technology. Competency-based education, self-paced learning, modular coursework, customizing the learning. And these tools are enabling the delivery of the highest quality educational experience, and to do so at a more affordable price. We've clipped some of your video on the Flex option at the University of Wisconsin. Let's play that now.
The University of Wisconsin Flex option is designed to make higher education more accessible and affordable while maintaining high standards. When we decouple the teaching, learning, and assessment components of the education model, students are able to take full advantage of free educational resources available online and elsewhere. They then demonstrate their knowledge through robust, reliable assessments. This approach also enables faculty to focus more attention on students and to utilize the rich array of instructional materials available in multiple formats. The UW Flex option allows students and faculty to engage on a more individual and personal level. Through the UW Flex option, students demonstrate mastery and understanding by completing a set of competencies that build toward a degree. Students can choose how to approach these competencies based on their prior education or job experience. For example, a student who feels confident in a subject can choose to take an assessment to complete a competency without having to do coursework covering material they already know. Students who desire more instruction can choose their level of educational involvement and use a wide variety of materials and resources. These may include free online courseware and content from the University of Wisconsin system campuses and other institutions. Students are free to start or stop the program at any time.
So let me close now by highlighting once again what I think is a challenge of leadership for higher education, that we need bold and responsible leaders, and we need bold and responsible management of our processes and our models, business and academic. The transformational changes are being precipitated by the financial stress that is coming from all of those directions, low returns on endowments, lids on our ability to raise tuition, declines on a per-student basis from state support, and growing concern about federal support in light of especially the sequester. So innovation really is the imperative. And it is possible given the breakthroughs that our universities are experiencing in areas like cognitive science, information technology, artificial intelligence. It's an exciting time to be in American higher education. It's a fulfilling time to be in higher education, but it is also a challenging time. Thank you very much for your attention. If there's time, Kevin, I'm happy to hear the feedback, Brent, and the questions that the board may have.
Regent Whitford.
Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. It's very helpful. Two questions. First, with regard to the debt that you talked about, I think what we're hearing about here in recent years, our grads, 70% would have debt on average about $25,000. I think late last year there was a national study out talking about $1 trillion in debt, again on average $25,000. Your data seemed to be lower. The national information we saw last year, was that flawed?
No, I don't think it was flawed. What I think has happened is that the small number of students who borrowed way beyond what was reasonable, who lacked financial sophistication, led to stories. I exchanged, for example, with the New York Times on a number of occasions where they were writing stories about individual students who had made very poor financial decisions. It is the case that on average we are still just about at 25,000. 75% of all students in American higher education who do borrow money have debt when they graduate that is at or below 25,000. There are some, particularly if it includes graduate school, medicine, and for many of the private institutions, but we are still very much at a manageable stage. What is happening, though, and is at risk, is that the interest rate on student loans is likely to go up unless there is congressional action, and congressional action seems harder to get these days than might have been the case in the past. So not yet at a worrisome place, but frankly, I think we have to be doing a better job at counseling students about what they can afford to pay back. And if they are pursuing an academic program that we know is probably not going to generate a significant income, that they need to be very mindful and aware of that before they take the deep dive. Now, it may be that Granddad will bail them out, and God bless that if that's the way it unfolds. But I think we need to be doing a better job in financial literacy and explaining to students what the downstream implications are for the borrowing they're doing.
My second question is with regard to tuition. You mentioned 7 moving down to 2.7. Is that public and private? Is that combined?
This is public.
Public. And is that in the 2.7, is that in the current school year or the previous year?
That's right. For 2013, for 2012-13, tuition increases in public institutions were down to 2.7%.
What's your best estimate of how that number will tack in the next 2 cycles?
I think the pressure's coming politically on the issue of what they call cost, but is really what we would call price. And we know that if the state cuts our budget by 5% or 10%, we've got to increase, just to replace those dollars, a higher percentage increase in tuition. It sure looks to me as if the pressure will continue to be on institutions to limit increases in tuition. President Obama has flirted with what some of us feel sound like price controls. I'm not going to be surprised if we hear something in the State of the Union message next week about at least the bully pulpit of keeping increases in tuition constrained.
Let me ask you, since you're before a governing board today, the role and some of the challenges you outlined, the role of governing boards like us, and what trends or do you see as far as the makeup of boards like ours or our role, just trying to get us involved in the discussion of some of the challenges you're outlining?
Well, we are frankly across the nation experiencing some real challenges in a healthy governance system. We have shared governance where the president, the board, and the faculty all have an important role to play. And sometimes those get out of balance, and we have to work hard to get them back into the appropriate balance. And it's an especially important role that the board can play. Not to direct leadership, but to support innovation and to encourage active involvement in areas where we need to improve, being open to hearing the points of view of the faculty, because ultimately, if the faculty aren't on board, it probably isn't going to be a successful initiative. This is something that is specific to individual institutions, and when all three components of the governance system are trusting of one another and working together, sharing points of view and differences of points of view, it's going to be a lot healthier for the institution.
Okay, Vartel.
Thank you for your presentation. Very interesting and thought-provoking. I haven't yet had an opportunity to read the open letter to college and university leaders, but I note that after the colon it says college completion must be our priority. It doesn't say post-secondary education must be our priority or some higher education must be our priority, but college completion must be our priority. And I wonder if you would comment on that choice of words and with respect, among other things, to financial aid, the use of financial aid, how that should be allocated to accomplish the objective that you're calling for.
You know, this effort was provoked by President Obama in the first months of his first administration, setting a goal for the U.S. to restore international leadership in the level of college attainment in the world. We have fallen steadily down, and so his goal was for us by 2020 to restore our leadership by achieving greater graduation and college completion rates. That's the backdrop for this report. And, you know, essentially we offered to take this on our own rather than to have the Department of Education create some kind of a commission to tell us how to do that. So the use of the word completion really comes from the Obama target for us by 2020. But what's in there I think you will find very compatible with the things I've said this morning, the importance of being innovative, of changing the culture, of making completion as important as admission. You know, we all have people with titles like Vice President for Enrollment Management to ensure that we get a full class and we get a class of the right distribution of students. We don't have a Vice President for completion. And so it calls for putting somebody in charge of making sure that we're doing everything we need to do to help students complete, whether it's a credential or a degree.
And allocation of financial aid as well.
Indeed. Indeed.
Not just spreading it across the board, but directing it to those who are more likely to cross the finish line.
Right.
Regent Vasquez.
Thank you for a very thought-provoking presentation. Question that I have is, has there been enough thinking, or not enough, but thinking and discussion of what the potential fiscal impact will be of all of these innovations, and does that thinking lead to there will be an across-the-board or some method of reduction in the cost of education? And I will have to state my bias on that. I get nervous when there are talks about we've got to impose cost controls, because there are some forms of education that it's very difficult to just reduce the cost. I get a little nervous when I see a screen that says we were able to teach thousands of students, one professor, thousands of students. Therefore, the cost is going to go down dramatically. Is that kind of what's in the future, and has there been thought as to, as we implement all of these, the cost of education across the board is just simply going to go down, or are there some other is there some other thinking about the cost? One thing is to impose, just simply say, regardless of what it's really costing to do it, we just don't want you to raise this tuition beyond that, and you figure it out.
So the greatest strength of American higher education is the richness of the diversity of the kinds of institutions, their missions, public and private, 2-year and 4-year, religious, teaching focused, research intensive. But increasingly, I think we're going to see greater diversity by what kind of students you are serving. So if you have an 18-year-old child that you want to provide a college education, there probably is nothing better than to go live on a campus, be a full-time student, take advantage of the richness of that environment where you're fed and where your medical care is taken care of by and large, your counseling, your recreation. I mean, it's a very enriched community. If you're a 40-something, you're not interested in that. You want the most efficient way that fits your needs to accomplish your goal in raising your skill level. Some of the things that I have found the most fascinating is when I listen to an endowed professor at an Ivy League institution who says, I have been able to deepen the learning in a class of 1,000 students than I can on my campus in a seminar room of 15 students. Shocked, inspired. And what we're seeing happening is the introduction of cognitive science, IT capabilities, different kinds of interfaces. Learning math may be more effective with a game interfacing. They talk about the humanities that after 22 minutes, the click stream on the MOOCs falls off, and that you need to maximize learning by stopping before that moment, give them assignments, active responses, projects to do. So I think there is no way to generalize, and it would be, I think, unfair to assume that this was going to, across the board, the reason for adopting a MOOC would be to reduce the cost. I can imagine that in a college where a faculty member retires, the state has cut the budget. There's not enough money to fill that vacant position. That they might take this free content by an endowed professor at some great institution and build it into their curriculum within their existing department and cohort of faculty. And we're seeing some of that being tested. So San Jose State is an example where they are offering MIT's course in circuits and electronics. It's a MOOC. And they're doing it by what we call flipping, where the students do that as their homework, as their night work. And in class, the faculty member at San Jose State is applying it, asking questions, engaging in individual tutoring and mentoring. So I think there are ways that can, in fact, both increase quality and at the same time reducing cost. We're not there yet, for sure, but that is the aspiration.
Regent Tyler.
Thank you. This is some very thought-provoking discussion. When I think about MOOCs, I can't help not thinking about Roy Sutherland and his observations about Coca-Cola, where the President of the United States can't get a better Coke than the bum on the corner. And I think about MOOCs and access in that same, it brings up questions of cost and how do you maintain delivery. But I wonder if you could comment on that. I see it as a real challenge, maybe a threat, but I also see it as this incredible opportunity.
And you heard that both from Daphne Kohler and Andrew Ng, that it is, in a sense, a democratizing opportunity where everyone has the chance to learn from the MOOC. Individuals who never otherwise, where they live, would be able to secure the equivalent of an Ivy League institution education. If you haven't seen the Davos interview by Tom Friedman of a 9-year-old girl from Pakistan who took a MOOC in bioelectricity, it is just simply amazing. And Friedman acknowledged at the front end that he was really nervous about interviewing this 9-year-old girl, because if he did something wrong, he would be all over YouTube and be seen by millions and millions of individuals. You know, this opens up opportunities for individuals of all ages, from children to adults, who can raise their knowledge and skill level in ways that are hard to predict from where they are. And in fact, some universities are using the MOOC results to recruit students who did well. You know, and Udacity, when Sebastian's artificial intelligence course was offered, the one he said blew his mind, the software engineering firms in Silicon Valley offered Stanford a very handsome stipend for the contact information on every one of the students who scored a perfect result at the end of the artificial intelligence. So, I mean, there are multiple models here. I'm absolutely confident that these will not look like they do today a year from now. But how they are going to evolve is going to be an exciting journey.
Chancellor Gowan and John.
I should say a disclaimer. I'm from UW La Crosse, and we do have a MOOC in developmental math that we're very proud of, and the Gates Foundation has generously funded that. Having said that, if we focus for a moment on the traditional age student, particularly those from modest socioeconomic backgrounds, you know, some of the people behind the numbers that you showed, do you have any concern that, you know, they may not have the discipline to go off and learn on their own? You know, traditionally, those have been the students who've needed the most personalized attention. And I guess I worry a little bit that we're sort of rushing to a solution and maybe taking our eye off the ball of that fundamental challenge that's still there, that we all know on our campuses. We've got great faculty and staff who are very passionately committed to students, and we can't pay them competitively. And then we've got students who want to take advantage of that, and the tuition's rising, and, you know, there's this substantial government disinvestment. You know, so I guess realistically, when you look down the road at the future for that student, what kind of college experience do we see in the future?
I think this is why we are experiencing somewhere between 70 and 80% of the people who sign up for these MOOCs never really do complete them. And my guess is the students that needs the most academic support is probably not going to be successful. But there are lots of students out there who have developed the capacity to struggle, which I think is central to learning, is having that capacity to struggle. But I think it is believable that individuals who've developed the capacity to struggle because they're living in poverty, or they have gone to prison, or they have been into drugs. I mean, I think there are ways in which individuals that have been marginalized in the past just might be successful because they do have this capacity to struggle. I don't think any simple answers, which is what I think your question implied, that you don't either.
Regent Bradley, did you?
As ACE pushes all of this out and just tries to imagine the future on the public higher education side, do you envision that these states that have invested in relatively large campuses, residential life institutions, that maybe states like New York and Wisconsin and California and Texas would have fewer residential campuses as a result of these trends? Or are we going to maintain the same number of campuses, but they just might look different and do different things?
Yeah. I think it's more likely the latter, but I think it wouldn't be realistic to acknowledge that there may be some institutions that are now living on the very edge who might not be around in 5 to 10 years. I mean, this has been the case already for a number of decades, and the solution for some of them was to sell their institution to a for-profit, and the for-profit thereby gained accreditation by buying a small institution that may be financially on the edge. I think we're going to see more institutions that are going to be on the edge, but I also am a great believer that in American higher education, good ideas are very contagious on college campuses, and I expect to see lots of college faculty members engage in this and make their own variations of it, and in the process maintain the strength of the campus and in fact enhance that strength.
Thanks. Regent Pruitt.
President Broad, I wanted to a bit follow up on President Smith's question in terms of you have a remarkable career in terms of higher education, and particularly public higher education, and I think your analysis of the growing sort of political pressures that particularly affect state university systems is very wise. And I wanted to tap on that wisdom in terms of the fact of any particular single piece of advice you'd offer to this governing board or other public university governing boards as we try to enable presidents and campuses to, as you said, what was it, do for ourselves as opposed to having others do unto us, which I thought was a nice paradigm. Is there a sort of a piece of advice you'd leave us with in terms of how a governing board which serves as sort of a bridge between the external stakeholders, oftentimes political leadership, and the shared governance arrangements that exist on the campus? Is there a piece of advice you'd offer us as to how we best navigate that and what we best do and don't do?
I think your responsibilities are even greater in the face of all of these forces of change and the challenges. And you're going to have to serve as the best buffer that this university has for people who would wish to intrude on the institution and give directions that may not be aligned with the mission of the institution. On the other hand, I would hope that you would be willing to support modest risk investments at a time when innovation is increasingly important. I applaud you for the support you have given to the President in exploring this option, this flex option. I think it is very innovative. I think it gives the faculty all the essential controls and responsibilities for assessing its value. Will there be some bumps in the road? Absolutely, for sure. But having the confidence to support the larger university in embarking upon this kind of innovation, I would hope you would do that as well.
President Riley, do you have some questions perhaps or comments?
No.
Or both.
No, I just wanted to say I think we all in this room can see why in the successor to David Ward as the president of the American Council on Education, we have such a wonderfully informed, articulate, passionate advocate and leader, and more than just being an advocate, somebody who is willing to push herself with the struggle in learning that for learning that she mentioned, and push all of us to take on some of the really big challenges that we know face us, that we're in some ways already grappling with, and to do that in a very informed way, in a deep way that brings all of her knowledge and experience to bear on where we need to go in the future in the face of those challenges. So we're just very lucky, I think, to have Molly's leadership at the national level, interfacing with the federal government in particular, but helping to lead us all in the right direction in the face of national and international trends, pressures, challenges, and opportunities that we have never faced, I think, at the same level and the same number before. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Molly. At this time, it's a pleasure of the board to present the 5th Annual Regents Diversity Awards. Regent John Drew, who is the chair of the selection committee, can't be here today, but I'm going to call upon Regent Tracy Rybar to do the honors. Tracy.
Good morning. As mentioned, this year's selection committee was chaired by Regent John Drew. Unfortunately, Regent Drew is unable to be here for today's presentation, but he sends his regrets and his congratulations. The other members of the selection committee are here, however, and that includes Regent Ed Menedides, Regent Jose Vasquez, and myself. On behalf of my colleagues, I'd like to extend a special welcome to this year's award recipients and their families, friends, and colleagues who have joined us here this morning. We are truly honored. This is the 5th year that the Board of Regents has presented its Diversity Awards, which are meant to recognize the outstanding contributions to diversity and inclusion by people and programs at our UW institutions. While the awards are relatively new, these are ideals that the UW system has promoted for more than 2 decades. Today's awards are part of a special family of awards that we as Regents sponsor. They include the Regents Teaching Excellence Awards and the Regents Academic Staff Awards, which recognize exceptional service. The Regent Diversity Awards program, which we present here this morning, was established through a board directive calling for the formal recognition of individuals, teams, or units within the UW system who have successfully fostered greater access and success for historically underrepresented populations. These efforts are vitally important, not only because it is socially just and fair thing to do, but because the educational and economic value this adds to the university and beyond. For those of us serving on the selection committee, I think we'd all agree, after reading the many pages of submitted materials, it was inspiring and rewarding to see up close all the exceptional work on diversity and inclusion that is being done around the UW system. The people and programs who are going to hear about this morning understand what's needed. More than that, they do something about meeting those needs. While their backgrounds and strategies might be different, our award recipients do share a few qualities. Each shows a genuine respect for human differences, a deep attentiveness to the learning process, and a keen responsiveness to students and their educational needs. We are proud to recognize their accomplishments. Before we present the awards, I'd like to point out that the profiles of each of our award winners have been placed in your folders, and I do encourage you to read them. I think you'll be as impressed as I was. As for the award ceremony itself, my colleagues and I on the Regent Selection Committee will each introduce one of the award recipients and present the award. Each winner will then have the opportunity to address the board from the podium. And lucky me, I get to start things off and present the first 2013 Board of Regents Diversity Award in the individual category to Dr. Angela Bauer, Professor of Human Biology and a Special Assistant to the Provost at UW Green Bay. A centerpiece of Angie's commitment to issues of diversity are the highly successful TOSS workshops she has helped to develop at UW Green Bay. TOSS stands for Targeted Opportunities for Success in Science. Those workshops, created in collaboration with the American Intercultural Center on campus, grew out of Angie's concern that relatively few students of color were choosing to major in the sciences. To address this problem, she focused her efforts on eliminating the achievement gaps that often exist between multicultural and white students in the foundation or gateway science courses. Starting with introductory human biology, weekly TOSS workshops provide students with active learning activities, often led by multicultural tutors, that allow them not only to review the content covered in the lecture for the week, but also establish connection with peers. The results have been very promising. In fact, TOSS workshops have actually closed the achievement gap in this course for 4 straight semesters. What's more, the number of students of color who have gone on to declare a human biology major at UW Green Bay increased by almost 30% between 2008 and 2011, going from 24 to 31. While Angie acknowledges there still is much work to be done to enhance diversity in the sciences, the findings to date are encouraging, and she has already engaged in discussions with other disciplines across campus about strategies to address achievement gaps in their gateway courses as well. In addition to TOSS workshops, Angie was also a lead proposer for UWGB's Campus Common Theme, Celebrating Differences, Creating Community. And as part of that effort, she spearheaded bringing a number of scientists of color to campus to mentor students. The reach of her effort goes far beyond UW Green Bay campus. Angie is also closely involved with the UW Systems Give Students a Compass project, as well as the Systems Equity Scorecard, both of which aim to reduce or eliminate inequities in educational opportunities and outcomes. As Warren Johnson, chair of the Human Biology Department, noted in his nominating letter, Professor Bauer has a widely recognized impact on enhancing the science education environment of minorities at UW Green Bay. We are a much better department because of his efforts. On that note, it is my pleasure to present our first Regents Diversity Award to Dr. Angela Bauer.
So much for those kind words. And thank you to the selection committee for this recognition. I can't tell you how satisfying it is and what an honor it is. So I also wanted to take the time to thank some of my colleagues at UW Green Bay who not only nominated me for this award, but who also have collaborated with me on so many of the inclusivity efforts on our campus that really are making a difference for our underrepresented students. So I'm so fortunate to work with colleagues like Juliet Cole, who's here with me today to celebrate, from the Institute for Learning Partnership, Associate Provost Andy Kirsten, also others who are not with me here today, Sean Robinson, who played a key role in constructing the TOSS workshops with me. He's with the American Intercultural Center. Ron Morris, who works with admissions, and I can't forget Associate Dean Donna Rich, who worked with me to develop a diversity course in the sciences that also we think is helping to make a more inclusive climate for underrepresented students within the sciences. So I know that many of us pour our hearts and souls into projects that we're passionate about because we believe they'll make a difference for our students. I know that not all of those efforts pan out. I've been there, but some of them do. And so I'm so excited about this, and I really want to take the time, first of all, to enjoy the moment, but secondly, to share with you what we've learned from our work, because what we've done, some of our efforts have really, truly made a significant impact on the experiences of our students on our campus, specifically with respect to opportunity gaps, as you've heard. So, and what I've learned has actually surprised me. What I've learned to be of utmost importance for promoting the success of all students is for faculty and staff to be intentional about creating community within our classrooms and also on the campus as a whole. I used to think that achievement gaps were all about differences in academic preparation or in content knowledge, and yeah, while those things are important for student success, they're really not key to closing the achievement gaps, at least based on what we've learned from our model. Creating community really is the key. We need to intentionally create opportunities for our students to connect with each other, to connect with faculty and staff, and above all, to feel valued. We must always be intentional about sending positive, affirmative messages to them about what we believe their potential to truly be. We found that that's the key, that's what makes all the difference in the world. So thanks again.
Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce the second recipient. Our second Regents Diversity Award in the individual category goes to Dr. Douglas Henderson, a professor in the Department of Engineering Physics at UW-Madison's College of Engineering. The former chair of that department had this to say about our award winner. Professor Henderson stands as a shining example of how institutional change begins with the persuasive commitment of one person. In his first 10 years as a UW-Madison Professor Douglas developed a national reputation for high-quality research in his scientific discipline. At the same time, however, he also began to develop a real interest in mentoring students, primarily those from underrepresented minority groups. In 1998, he worked with the UW Graduate School to develop the Graduate Engineering Research Scholars, or GERS, program, a unique fellowship program designed to offer students a support network of peers. Through the GERS program, students became members of a supportive community of UW-Madison's engineering graduate students, faculty, and staff. The larger goal of this program is to increase the number of underrepresented minority graduate students in engineering receiving doctoral degrees and to increase the likelihood that they will pursue a career as a faculty member. When it started, the program served 3 underrepresented minority PhD students in the College of Engineering. Currently, there are 51. Over the past decade, 46 PhD students have graduated from the program, up from just 17 graduates in the 9 years prior to the program. 10 of those students are currently faculty members at universities, 5 are in postdoc positions, 7 are at national laboratories, 2 have graduated from the MD PhD program, and others have found jobs with industry. It should also be noted that the GERS program has graduated a higher percentage of women PhDs, 59%, than men, 41%, which is unique compared to peer institutions. The GERS model is now being copied throughout UW-Madison for STEM education and also by other Research One universities, including the University of Michigan and University of Illinois. Dean Paul Piercy says it is nearly impossible to describe the energy and persistence required to build such a program. He adds, and I quote, "To make it work, creators like Doug not only need the idea, they need to recruit allies from among very busy faculty and staff to help. They need to change perspectives about what approaches are like to succeed, and they need to build trust that the available funds will be used responsibly and will create substantial impact. Doug has done all of that and more." In 2009, Dr. Henderson was one of 15 honorees nationwide to receive a presidential award for excellence in science, mathematics, and engineering mentoring from the National Science Foundation. We are very proud to add to his accolades here today. Please join me in welcoming our second Regent Diversity Award winner, Dr. Douglas Henderson.
not sure I could add very much to that, but I can say I'm very, very honored to be awarded this Diversity Award from the Board of Regents. This award actually recognizes a lot of the work that has transpired over the last 13 years in the College of Engineering. We've all heard about the achievement gap, sort of K to 12 educational levels, but it's not only important to improve, to increase the represented minorities in entering college, but we also need to improve the number of underrepresented minorities at the upper level of education, and in that case, the professoriate. These individuals can serve as role models for students coming in. Now, I can attest to personal experience. The first day I walk into a classroom with my junior students is kind of a surprise for them. Also, kind of at the graduate level, I also teach a graduate level, first year graduate level, we call it engineering analysis, but really it's a math course. Same thing kind of happens. You kind of walk in, the students kind of look, okay. And then we just kind of proceed to business, which means lecturing and giving them homework assignments. Pretty soon they realize that this is just another teacher that's giving me the information that I need to succeed. So that's how we kind of progress with that. I became a faculty member at UW Madison in 1989, and when there were discussions about diversifying the faculty ranks, I was always hear the following comment: there aren't enough minorities in the field for us to recruit into faculty positions. And so my comeback always was, well, if we don't have enough minorities, then we really should be producing them. And so we already know that we're a Research One university, so why aren't we doing something about it? So that was sort of a motivation to try to get things moving. So when we started, the numbers, we have very low PhD numbers. We had 10 or 12 individuals, that is, underrepresented minority students, as students in a college of about 1,200 or more students. So you can see when the numbers were less than 1% of the population actually were underrepresented minority students at that particular time. I want to update some of the numbers that he gave right here. Currently we have 49 PhDs and about 51 students currently in the program. We have 12 students right now in PhD in faculty positions, and we have currently 3 students in the program that are being actively recruited by other universities as faculty members. We're kind of proud of that. So roughly about 25% of our students end up going into faculty positions, and I think that's unusual as well, but we're very, very proud of that. Also, another statistic was the number of women, and I could say that we're still graduating more women than men. We're roughly 55% women, 45% men in the program that are graduating. In terms of the program itself around campus, some of you that are here on campus know that it's kind of proliferated across campus with other units: College of Letters and Science, School of Education, Business, then also the medical school and the College of Agriculture and Sciences. They all have similar programs that we have, all based on our particular model, and they're all kind of doing very well. What I'd like to do at this particular moment foremost recognize one of the individual persons that kind of make things work. She's here today, and that's Miss Kelly Burton. She's sitting over here in the audience, kind of now looking at me like, wait a minute, don't point me out. But anyhow, she keeps the program running on a day-to-day basis. She was with us with the program that started way back, and she was hired in 1999, so after various discussions with individuals. Next, I'd like to point to a person that I call my confidant, a person I can kind of go to and talk about, just kind of say, what's happening here? Why are the faculty acting like this? Why are they doing this? Why is the provost doing this? That kind of thing. Why is the chancellor not reacting right? Anyhow, and that is Dr. Lucille Lee, who is actually on this particular site, and she's the former director of the Chancellor Scholarship Program. And she knows, anyhow, she's right there in that site. So. There are others in the college and the graduate school I'd like to recognize that were instrumental in getting this program started on this campus. And there were Professor Michael Cordini. He used to be former Associate Dean of the College of Engineering. Terry Millar, he used to be former Associate Dean of the Physical Science in the graduate school. Former Dean of the College of Engineering, John Bollinger. He sort of got the ball rolling at that particular time. I'd like to acknowledge also Jim Knickmeyer, former Associate Dean of the Grad School for the Finances. Then Dean Martin Cadwallader of the grad school. All of those played an instrumental role in getting things sort of up and running and started and supported us as we kind of went through, plus the other programs on campus. And then I would like to say, once again, thanks for this award. and accepted in the name of the students in the girls program. Thank you very much.
Last but not least, the team category. The team category award from the Regents Diversity Committee this year goes to the McNair Scholars Program at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. Since 1992, the McNair Scholars Program at UW-Whitewater has prepared multicultural, first-generation, and low-income students for graduate study and eventual careers as faculty. The program we're honoring today from UW-Whitewater provides educational and professional role models for future students, a high-quality research setting, enhanced preparation in writing, critical thinking, technology, research methodology, applied research, and test-taking. The central feature of this program is the mentoring that each scholar receives from faculty members. Here's the impressive part, and you're really interested in this. The program's track record at UW-Whitewater has been impressive. The program has graduated 99%, that's 99% of its participants. More than 80% of those go on to graduate school. To date, the program has produced 16 PhDs, 10 PhD candidates, 90 master's degrees recipients, 38 master's degree prospects, and there are currently 30 students who are working towards their bachelor's degree. The program is closely involved with UW-Whitewater's Grow Our Own initiative, which is aimed at diversifying faculty and staff through engagement with alumni who are currently enrolled or have completed recently their doctoral study. It is my pleasure to present the 2013 Regents Diversity Award in the team category to the McNair Scholars at the UW-Whitewater. Here to accept the award on behalf of the program is Program Director Samantha Salmon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On behalf of the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater administrators, faculty, staff, and students, I would like to thank the Board of Regents for nominating the UW-Whitewater McNair Scholars Program for this prestigious award. This award demonstrates the board's level of support for and committed to serving underrepresented multicultural groups, low-income and first-generation student populations. As stated earlier, the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater established its McNair Scholars Program 1992-1993 academic year with the intent of changing perceptions of multicultural, low-income, and first-generation college students on our campus. The program provides students with a tool to prepare them for graduate education and careers in higher education. We feel that it has more than fulfilled our expectations because we have 99%, as stated earlier, retention rate of our students, and over 80% of our students actually continue on going to graduate school. And I do have a new update that we do now have 20 students who have earned doctoral degree or other terminal degrees. So we have 20 now. So therefore, the McNair Scholar Program staff, we are very thankful for all those who have contributed to the success of our program. I would like to first thank our Chancellor, Dr. Richard Telfer, for all of his support. In 1991, he had co-wrote the first McNair grant with with Roger Pulliam, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Academic Support Services, Emeritus. We also received unwavering support from our Provost, Beverly Copper, and of course our Associate Vice Chancellor, Greg Cook, who is here today also, and Assistant Vice Chancellor for Office of Multicultural Affairs and Student Success, Richard McGregory
over there, sitting over there. Secondly, I have to say that we are also very grateful for the work of our faculty mentors. They are instrumental to our program, and I always refer to them as the glue to our program success. So we have to thank to all the faculty. Thirdly, we are very fortunate on our campus. We have such a collaborator like Dr. Catherine Kim, who is right there, my colleague. She is the director of the undergraduate research program. We work collaboratively together at all various events, and she also mentored a lot of our McNair scholars as well. So we're always on a mission for collaborating different events on our campus, to regional conferences, to national conferences. We also serve on each other's advisory committee, so we're excited about that as well. Next, we receive excellent guidance from the McNair Faculty Advisory Committee. Their contributions to the program help us select these fine McNair scholars. Finally, we are very, very grateful for the students themselves, like Melissa Wu, who came in with us today, one of the McNair scholars, who's sitting right there. Their motivation and dedication to their pursuit of their career and educational goals is inspiring to all of us. Overall, this recognition demonstrates that students from low-income, first-generation, and underrepresented multicultural backgrounds can be successfully prepared for careers where graduate training is required by a regional comprehensive campus with an access mission. So on behalf of Chancellor Richard Telfer, Provost Beth Copper, and the faculty, staff, and students from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, I am honored to accept the Board of Regents Diversity Award for the McNair Scholars Program. Thank you so much.
Congratulations again, and thanks for joining us this morning. We're going to switch now to our committee reports. We'll start with the Ready Committee. You should have a written report that was on top of our folders before we came this morning. I'll call on Regent Bradley.
Thank you very much, President Smith. On behalf of the Ready Committee, we extended our heartfelt congratulations to Reed Hall, who was appointed by Governor Walker to fill a permanent position as the CEO of the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. Lisa Johnson from WEDC, she is the Vice President of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, made a presentation to us. She highlighted WEDC's initiatives in the area of startups, innovation, and small business development. She said that the focus of her mission at WEDC is to encourage more business startups in the state, and to encourage these efforts, she called for supporting an entrepreneurial ecosystem in our state, increasing investment capital, which we've heard for years as a need in our state. And also, she said it's very important to accelerate the pace of change in what she characterized as Wisconsin's risk-averse culture. We next heard from Associate Vice President for Economic Development, Dave Bruchart. He discussed the UW System's Economic Development Roadmap and posed questions for the committee's discussion. 3 initiatives that Dave highlighted include, 1, the metrics and reporting that are required by Act 32, 2, building stronger connections among WEDC, the UW, and private industry, and 3, establishing sustainable funding for our economic development priorities. After Dave's presentation and some discussion, the committee passed a resolution calling for the creation of 2 subcommittees. One subcommittee will identify opportunities to reward faculty members who engage in activities related to research, economic development, and innovation. And the other subcommittee, which we hope will be comprised of representatives of the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation, the UW-Milwaukee Research Foundation, WISIS Foundation, WEDC, and others, will develop a framework to support the development of a sustainable resource pool to be used to advance promising research from what Lisa Johnson called seed capital through early stage startups. So we have 2 ambitious subcommittees that I will appoint and we'll get started next week. Finally, we heard from UW-Oshkosh Chancellor Rick Wells and Vice Chancellor for Administrative Services Tom Sunleitner about the role that comprehensive universities can play in regional economic development. One effort that was interesting and unique to UW-Oshkosh is its Business Success Center. They established this in 1998. It consists of faculty, staff, students, but also community-based experts who combine their knowledge to offer customized training, applied research, business consulting, student internship programs, and survey services to firms in the area. It's been a very successful program, and other campuses might look at it as a model for their activities, or just to get some ideas to expand what they're already doing. Chancellor Wells also highlighted another initiative underway to create the UW-Oshkosh Business Accelerator Program that would focus on fostering business growth in 5 industries with an initial focus on aviation and space technologies. Finally, we learned that UW-Oshkosh is a leader in anaerobic digestion of solid waste. The campus is becoming a leader in renewable energy production, operation.
You can tell when you look at Chancellor Wells.
But I didn't say that.
Nobody's coming.
Vice Chancellor Sunleitner said that not only does the campus operate in a more environmentally friendly way, it also helps reduce operational costs, and in return the campus can redirect savings to the expansion of academic programs and classroom seats, which is the core of its institutional mission. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Regent Bradley or anybody on the READY Committee? All right, we're going to now switch to Business, Finance, and Audit. I think a written report has been provided. I'll ask Regent Whitburn to comment briefly and respond to any questions.
Thank you, President Smith. The committee reviewed the summary of gift grant and contract awards for the period July 1st of last year through the end of the year. The committee also noted that the UW Medical Foundation is intending to purchase a 50% position in Cartwell, Wisconsin Enterprises, LLC. This is a provider of home infusion therapies. Currently, the remaining 50% of the entity is owned by UW Hospital and Clinics Authority. This board does not have to act on this acquisition, but consistent with the founding documents surrounding the UW Medical Foundation, we're meant to be informed when such transactions occurred. As is customary in our February meeting, we're presented with the annual financial report and also the auditor's opinion. As part of this year's audit, as we know, the LAB brought to our attention material weaknesses in the internal controls of our new human resources system. The committee had an extensive discussion of the findings related to the HRS and internal controls, and also received additional disclosures regarding the challenges being faced. President Riley would like to update the full board on this issue at this point.
Thank you, Regent Whitburn. And we did have, as Regent Whitburn said, a very extensive set of presentations and discussions on this important issue at the Business, Finance, and Audit Committee yesterday, with a number of my colleagues talking what we thought we would do today, because there were a number of the regents who were not on that committee and not at the discussion, is I'll elaborate some on my introductory remarks to that session to BF&A yesterday, and then I'll ask Liz Dion, our auditor, to come up and essentially cover the same ground with the full board that she did with the committee, just so those who are not on Business, Finance, and Audit feel like they're fully informed and can ask whatever questions they want. And I know we have folks from the Service Center and Madison who are working on this. I see Bob Lavinia, and I think Larry is over there as well. So we have folks on the front lines of this who can help answer questions if board members have them as we go along. So with a little tolerance from those of you who are on Business, Finance, and Committee and heard some of this yesterday, I'll move along that way. So when I testified in front of the Joint Legislative Audit Committee on January 22nd, I said to them, and I'll say to the full board again, I'm deeply troubled by the mistakes that we've made in the administration of our employee benefits accounts. We recognize that this board has a fiduciary and a stewardship and a governance responsibility over all of this, and we respect and value your role in that regard, and as well as the advice and counsel you provide to us in these kinds of situations. And we want you to be fully informed. So we have set a principle here that we're going to be as forthright and transparent as we possibly can in this situation. To that end, we briefed the President and the Vice President of the Board, the Chair and the Vice Chair of the Business, Finance, and Audit Committee extensively on these issues. We will continue to apprise them and all of you on future developments. We recognize in doing that, I think it's the right thing to do, but we recognize that this will require some uncomfortable public conversations. And while you will not feel comfortable with the topic, we certainly don't. We hope that you'll begin to feel confident that the way we're attacking the problem, knowing that we're doing everything possible to fix it as quickly as we can. So we're committed to do that to an expeditious three-pronged approach. The first prong involves our internal audit function led by Liz Dion, who will speak to you in a minute. She's already begun a vigorous review of the issues related to HRS with an emphasis on shining a light on any new issues that have not yet been aired. I can tell you that she and her staff will be dedicating a vast amount of time and effort to this project in close cooperation with others in the coming weeks and months. That brings me to the second prong of our approach here, which is an external risk assessment. In addition to the work being done by our internal audit staff and by our colleagues in the Service Center, we're working to engage an independent outside expert to validate the risks we've identified in 4 key areas: policy, process, people, and technology, and help us identify any other risks that we might have missed. And as we've learned more and more about this as we've moved through the implementation, those 4 domains of policy, process, people, and technology are really the 4 that you have to have aligned with each other to make a successful creation of this new system. And the findings from this risk assessment, both our risk assessment by the external firm that we hope to have on board by next week, and our internal auditor, are being shared with the LAB staff and will be shared with them in the future as we learn more. And that's really our third prong: full cooperation with the Legislative Audit Bureau. Before this meeting, I spoke with co-chairs of the Joint Legislative Audit Committee to let them know we'd be discussing new issues regarding HRS in your meetings yesterday and today, and to assure them that the LAB staff will have unfettered access to all the information they need to conduct a thorough and objective examination. So all 3 lines of inquiry will look at the interconnected challenges that arose from the implementation and use of a very large, very complex payroll and benefits system designed to serve a very large, very complex university system. Consider the following. In any given month, the Service Center uses HRS to issue paychecks to almost 79,000 faculty, staff, classified staff, graduate assistants, and student employees. The Service Center last month, in January, generated more than 102,000 W-2s, one for every person who works somewhere for some amount of time in the UW system during calendar year 2012. Every day, employees in individual departments and colleges and divisions and campus HR offices enter employee-specific data into HRS. That data feeds into the Service Center, driving payroll and benefits eligibility. Our extensive benefits data must then be matched up with the corresponding roles at the Employee Trust Funds, the agency that administers our core health and retirement plans. Unlike any state or local entity, we pay for these benefits using a myriad of funding sources, including state GPR, tuition, federal grants, private gifts, student-segregated fees, and other sources. Furthermore, the funding sources used to compensate an individual can fluctuate, often do, from semester to semester, and even sometimes from month to month. It's a very complicated system. But mentioning this complexity, I want to emphasize this, is not to make excuses, but to point out that we will need considerable amounts of both patience and tenacity. We are fixing issues as we go to the extent we can when we find them, and we will continue to fix the rest of the problems going forward. There's a rolling aspect to this in that sense. As we uncover and fix those problems, we'll continue to enhance the way that the HRS is administered. In his 8 months as the HRS Service Center Director, Larry Henderson has reorganized the staff. He's working to redesign the work processes from end to end and has appointed a new manager to focus exclusively on reconciling UW benefits data with systems maintained by ETF. Larry is continuing to add more staff to focus on benefits reconciliation in particular. These changes at the Service Center, along with due diligence by our internal audit staff, have uncovered a number of problems which we have already remedied or are in the process of remedying. Let me mention a few of those. By September 2012, 1 month after the discovery of our overpayments to the retirement accounts, ETF credited the UW system for 100% of overpayments made to them, to the Wisconsin retirement system. In October 2012, we alerted the Legislative Audit Bureau to the amount of overpayments made to employee health benefits, and then worked with ETF to recover $2.4 million of those dollars. Also in October 2012, the Service Center identified state group life insurance overpayments that resulted from an invoicing error. No employees were affected. Once we identified and communicated this issue to the insurance vendor, the vendor immediately issued a credit for the full overpayment, which in that case was $450,000. Appropriate controls to mitigate the risk of a recurrence were put in place that same month. In their earlier report, LAB's staff also recommended that UW system review HRS security roles and permissions granted to the individual staff members who are authorized to use the system. LAB recommended that access to certain parts of the system by these authorized users be more limited. We agree, and our team has taken steps to implement these measures. I should point out that since we went live with HRS in April of 2011, the system has been working. It's been working, imperfectly to be sure, but working nonetheless. That is, our 79,000 UW employees are getting their paychecks and receiving the benefits for which they're eligible. We retired a dangerously outdated mainframe system, and I want to tell you, from anything our people were telling me, this was a very dangerously outdated mainframe system that we were on, and switched over to a new, more sustainable, more integrated system. That switchover process has been much, much rougher than anybody would want, but we are determined to smooth that road going forward. We're working closely with the leadership and staff at ETF who administer, with our cooperation, many of the benefits that our employees receive. And I want to thank Secretary Conlon and Deputy Secretary Marchand for their cooperation and assistance in these matters. All of us in the university are 100% committed to identifying and solving the root causes of the problems we've experienced. We are well underway in that process, and we will push it as hard and as fast as we can. I want now to ask Liz Dion to come forward and, again, go through some of what she's finding in her internal audit of the systems, and then we'll open it up for questions, comments, advice from Liz.
Thank you, President Riley, and to the members of the board. This morning I'm going to speak more about the question of what are known issues that have occurred since go live of the HRS system. President Riley already spoke of the access program change in WRS's state group health overpayment issues that were included within the LAB's management letter that was issued in conjunction with the financial statement audit. However, it's important to note that there have been other implementation challenges beyond these that have been disclosed to me in recent months during the course of inquiries, and those I'll discuss today. I expect the question of greatest remaining interest is whether there are known issues that have a net fiscal impact on the UW system. When I use the term net fiscal impact, understand that this term indicates the net amounts that would not normally have been incurred by the UW system and that have not yet been recovered. In responding to that question, the simple answer is yes. And based upon information I've gathered as of today, I'm estimating a net known fiscal impact on the system of approximately $1.1 million stemming from configuration challenges, withholding errors, and other such matters since go live of HRS in April of 2011. Of the approximate $1.1 million net impact I just cited, about $700,000 relates to various errors in withholding FICA or withholding income taxes from certain categories of employees subject to less common withholding rules. For example, the largest component in this category of error is an estimated $600,000 net impact attributable to not withholding FICA from student employees during the summer of 2011. For student employees, there are IRS rules that dictate whether or not students are exempt from FICA. For example, undergraduate and graduate students are not subject to FICA if they are enrolled for more than half time. If a student changes their course load to less than half time, such as during the summer, the employer, UW system in this case, is required to withhold and subsequently remit both an employee and employer share of FICA to the federal government. In the case of the University of Wisconsin system, during the summer of 2011, an underwithholding error occurred because of the multiple systems tracking student enrollment were not properly integrated with the HR system to identify students that were subject to FICA when enrollment levels changed. After identifying, the UW system did remit payments to the federal government in the gross amount of approximately $1.2 million for both the employee and employer share. UW management made a decision not to recover the approximate $600,000 employee share from students. That's just one example within that category, but is given to provide you a sense of the type of FICA and income tax withholding issues that were experienced. A separate type of issue relates to benefits billing. This constitutes about $350,000 of the approximate $1.1 million net impact, and resulted when amounts were not properly billed to employees. An example of this would occur if a UW system employee would be covered by UW system benefits during an extended leave of absence, although was responsible for paying the full cost of benefits of both the employee and employer share during that leave. In what I would call an accounts receivable issue, there were not policies and practices in place to ensure that the employees were billed and the amounts were collected. In addition to the items that I just discussed with a net fiscal impact on the UW system, you might be wondering if there have been other challenges for which the UW system has since made full recoveries. And the answer to that question is also yes. For example, there have been circumstances in which deductions were not withheld from employees during the proper time period, but were later identified and subsequently withheld. Or there was a situation in which $450,000 of overpayments to a life insurance benefit provider was not identified timely, yet has since been identified and fully recovered. I want to make it clear, regardless of whether or not there is a net fiscal impact, every single issue that's being identified needs to be explored in the for all categories of errors, and really to get to the root cause, to understand the processes and policies, and to make sure that sufficient controls and corrective actions are implemented in order to mitigate the risk of similar occurrences in the future. Although I've identified some known challenges that impacted the UW system since the implementation of HRS, I also want to be clear that a number of review processes are currently underway, and it is possible that additional issues come to light or fiscal impacts would exist. Our office, as liaison to the LAB during conduct of their audit, is committed to sharing that information as they're identified.
Thank you. So we could have questions or comments for any of the four. Larry Henderson is here. Regent Bartel.
Yeah, I just heard about a number of overpayments. In the course of this review, did you find any underpayments?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
Of how, what magnitude?
So, an example I'll give. There was a $270,000, I guess some of these are under withholdings from employees. So when I say underpayments to benefit providers, so maybe I missed.
So that's an over. I mean, we
right.
overpaid the students
right.
because we didn't withhold. What about underpayments? We had.
I have not yet identified anything like that. So.
Further questions, comments? Tyler.
probably too deep into the weeds, but if we essentially make the decision to not go back to the student, is that additional compensation that requires additional exposure on our part? So if there's $600,000 that we should have held and we didn't, is that additional income for them that requires additional withholding beyond the $600,000 on our part? So in other words, are we exacerbating the problem?
That's a good question, but I'm not in a position. I haven't done the research on that specifically at this time.
Let's see. Can anybody help Regent Tyler with the answer to that one?
It's a tax lawyer question.
Tax lawyer question. Okay, we'll look into that and get back to you, Regent Tyler.
Further questions or comments?
Jeannie, you're looking like you were going to ask a question.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to start asking questions, but
sure.
First of all, I appreciate the regular updating for us, because I do think confidence needs to be rebuilt. I was surprised that we weren't brought up to speed on this in the fourth quarter of 2012. So, but that's done. My question about this is that we are bringing in the Legislative Audit Bureau, we're bringing in consulting, we're doing our own internal audit. We're really focusing on this. And my question is there, or what is the role of the finance departments or the HR departments at our various campuses at this? Because what we're trying to do is a very complex integration of a system. And I think anyone who has been part of that kind of new introduction of a new system understands how complicated it is. And I'm certain that you are working with the various campuses, President Riley, but within this detailed analysis, what is their role going to be in this?
Good. Very good question. Let me take a whack at it, and then maybe Larry can help out too. You know, what I've asked Larry and the Service Center to do is to produce a very clear description of problems and issues that may have led to the cause of this. What I will do at the next meeting of our chancellors is bring that list, and we'll sit down and say, all right, you know, what needs to happen differently in the HR departments at campuses, in the academic departments at campuses, perhaps when they're reporting when a professor is left or is on leave for the summer, is on paid leave, on non-paid leave. All of those are the kinds of things that you can trip over easily in these systems. So, as I said in my remarks, Regent Milner, the HRS or the human resources folks on the campuses are putting data into this system all the time, and we need to work together to make sure that they're putting the data in correctly and in a timely way. It's not to blame anybody here. These are, again, what this switchover required was a lot of very good, competent people with some training to move, in many instances, to a different way of doing business, and that's never easy. That rollover is never easy or simple. So I think we have lots of work to do in talking with the institutions about their HR departments and how they interact with this system. We have work to do with system administration and the Service Center. Larry, want to add to that?
Very good question. Good morning. I'm Larry Henderson, the Service Center Director. I've been here since about April of 2012. The question about, it really is an end-to-end issue. Part of the end-to-end issue is that much of the data is put into the system from the campuses or from the different divisions and departments. When the system was designed, one of the things that probably need to be considered was time as a criteria. We have 2 months to get the data from the beginning to the end to reconcile. We have a 2-month look back in terms of recovering funds if we overpaid, for example, in state group health. So when we put the system together, there was not necessarily a criteria that we had to get it all done in 2 months and have that reconciled. Because after 2 months, that's the threshold of being able to return funds. So for example, if someone terminated on campus, maybe you think twice whether or not you want to put it in the system. They might come back with someone on leave. That's part of it. We have roughly about, I think, 1,200,000 job data moves that impact benefit eligibility that impact job-related information. Of those, 51% impact benefit eligibility. So an individual could change benefit eligibility 4 or 5 times in a year. So it's a very dynamic environment. So to your question, absolutely, campus, we're all a part of this. One piece of that is how timely information comes. When we find out that we have a disconnect between what's in the file or what's on the record, either at ETF or what's on the record in terms of HRS system, then we ask the campus or the other or whatever location to let us know whether or not that individual was actually terminated, an individual has transferred, or what the circumstances are, so we can correct the records. So does that help?
Let me ask Liz quick. Liz, how far along are you in your review? I think you told us yesterday, and you used some percentage of that you, as far as what you reviewed.
Yeah. I don't know if I use a percentage, but right now what I've done is I'm going through, through inquiries and past issue logs. I would say that I've gotten a handle on what were things that have happened kind of in the course of Go Live. But in terms of, I would say there's a big component that I still need to do, and that's looking what else could be out there that maybe hasn't come up. We would hope, based upon the risk-based approach, that we're pretty far and that anything remaining would be, minor in comparison.
Okay.
But
Regent Felbo.
A couple of things. I think it's important for the board and everybody to know. Question. I have 2 questions. First one is, have we, based on what Larry was just saying, have we given up on trying to collect those health insurance premiums paid that shouldn't have been paid?
No, we have not. We are still talking with our friends at ETF, and we want to see where those talks might go. So we will persist in seeking those funds.
Okay, and then the other question I have is, if anybody's willing to, I'd like to hear from our customers, which is the campuses mainly, to just get an idea of, not taking into account that it's going to take a lot of extra work, as we know, to fix all of this, but on an ongoing basis, has the system kind of settled in? Is it becoming more second nature? Is it advantageous? Just not to dig too, but if any of the chancellors would be willing to comment about that. I think it's important to know at the end of the day, we have these issues, we want to resolve them, but is the system doing for you, for our customers, what it's supposed to be doing outside of this?
Anybody want to tackle that? Chancellor Sorensen.
Very quick comment. Larry brought a team up to our campus, what was it, some of yours were, yeah, and spent 2 or 3 weeks with our people on campus, and did a very fine job in correcting some of the errors being made, and I think educating them on how the system worked. I really have not heard any explosive issues since then. So it was hands off to this team that came up there in a very intensive way, and very bright young people he brought to help us out of this morass. It was very effective.
Answer Ford.
We, too, worked very closely with Larry and the Service Center. I identified some challenges that we were having on our campus in terms of implementation and training. Worked with Michael Morgan last spring. We had a group from the Service Center and from, I guess, others come in and do an assessment for us to determine what the issues were. We then identified 14 individual projects or tasks that we wanted to accomplish over a period from about July through December. We did successfully complete all of those projects on time and under budget to be able to help us at the campus level with improved training, improved integration, and improved understanding of how best to deploy the robust system with HRS. And so it has helped us and to resolve some of those issues that are detailed and systematic across the board.
And if I could, thank you, Debbie, if I could just say to both to Regent Felbo's question and to Regent Milner's question, we will take what we've learned from those 2 experiences at the 2 institutions and see how widely we can apply it then in working with the other HR departments at the other campuses around the system.
Regent Patrick.
I think I must speak on behalf of our faculty and our staff at Stevens Point. To answer your question, Regent Bartell, there have been underpayments. I think it's gotten better, but we had a number of cases where employees got no paycheck. And when they're standing in your office saying, I didn't get paid, and my mortgage is due tomorrow, what am I going to do? Now, people went to great lengths to fix it. And people drove to Madison to pick up checks, and they met people from Madison halfway to pick up checks, and so they pulled out all the stops to try to get it fixed, but nevertheless, to the person who's standing there with no paycheck and living paycheck to paycheck, they're very difficult problems to deal with. Been other implementation issues on campus as well. I think they're getting better. I've heard good reports about Larry's work and how things are changing and improving, but it's been a difficult time.
Regent Vasquez, and then Regent Whitburn.
I just asked Regent Whitburn about discussion about what kind of follow-up reports as regents we're going to be getting.
Okay. Regent Whitburn.
Two fronts. Our committee and then the full board will receive an update in our next meeting. Meanwhile, as you have read, the LAB and the Joint Committee on Audit have directed a deeper dive by the LAB staff into university HRS matters. The state auditor and the audit director were both with us in our meeting, throughout our meeting yesterday, and I asked the state auditor plans with regard to keeping us posted. We will have no control as to the duration of or the timeline on the audit, understanding that members of his committee to which he reports would be naturally anxious for information, and as is typical with the LAB process, it'll be thorough and deliberative, unless they uncover, he said to us, circumstances or factoids that require immediate interim updates to the Joint Committee. Under those circumstances, we would, of course, be notified, and it'll be our President Riley and the senior staff's job to keep us posted and keep all of you posted. Our members of with what I've just said, any questions on what I've just said?
For the external group that we are hiring, not Liz and not the LAB, but the risk assessment. They will be giving us some type of interim reports.
And Liz will keep our committee posted. And as I indicated in a statement that I made yesterday, Regent Bailing and I are on a course to get bi-weekly updates from Elizabeth as to progress in moving to, as I said yesterday, getting this toward the done pile. Any other questions?
Just I'm superseding Regent Bartel, but this is a sort of a follow-up on that, on what Regent Whitburn has just spoken to us about, what's going to be done. We've just listened to a speaker talk about the importance of a governing board for a system such as ours. And to me, as I think about this particular issue and not getting deep into the particular issue, elements of the issue, I think it's two-pronged. Number one, for us as a governing board, we need to understand and consider, first of all, the quality of the integration, because that's the oversight that we need to do. But we also need to consider the quality and timeliness of reporting to us, so we have an ability to understand the quality of not just this integration, but anything going forward. And I think that is one of the important lessons that comes out of all of this for us as a board.
Well, I was just going to say that all of us around this table are very embarrassed about what has happened. I think to a person here, the Regents are embarrassed about the information that we've learned. And I think that it is important. I know the first task should be, let's find out what happened, why it happened, let's fix that. But I think we also need to focus on how do we prevent something like this happening. And part of it is learning about it in a timely fashion. But how do we prevent something like this happening again? Somebody should be focusing on, okay, here's what went wrong, but what could we have done to prevent that from happening? And we should learn from this, and there should be an improvement in the process and the procedures, including the governance procedure, as a result of all of this.
Sure, Regent Miller.
Yeah, I'm sorry, one more weigh-in. The issue is not fighting the past wars. The issue is taking the learning that we have from this particular incident and apply it to something that's going to happen in the future, which is, I believe, what Regent Bartel is. This is what we feel about this.
Anything else on this? Any questions, comments? That's good.
Maybe I could finish my thought earlier when I asked the question about follow-up reports. It wasn't that we as Regents have not asked to be kept informed. And I'm wondering if in these discussions about what kind of follow-up reporting will happen, we can get assistance to make sure that even our ask to be kept informed is structured in a way that we are given appropriate information. It seemed to me that we seem to have asked a very narrow question about being kept informed, and it was centered more around just the technology side of, is that happening? And I think we got an answer to a very precise area without understanding that there was going to be a lot more than just that little component. And I guess that's where I'm asking the human resources folks is, can you help us even structure the question of how should we be kept informed rather than just, because we were doing, as Regents, we did do our job, which is we want to be kept informed on a very critical issue. But somehow, and we were being provided reports. So that's all I'm concerned about is, are we, as Regents, when we say we're going to be informed, even structured the question in a way that we can avoid what I feel happened, which was a very narrow question was asked, and it was answered, but it seemed to have missed some other things. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Well, if it was narrow before, and I'm not sure it was, but that's a discussion that we've been kind of having here and probably needs further discussion. If it was that narrow, which I'm not sure it was, I'm pretty clear now that it's not narrow, that we expect and want information on not only the technology, is it working, but what they're finding out is to A, fixing, and B, going forward, exactly what I think both Regent Milner and Regent Bartel were talking about. So I think our discussion today and every discussion we've had in the last month has made it clear that, you know, it's broader. If anybody misunderstood or understood it to be just as narrow as, I don't think you were necessarily portraying, but it just is it working? You know, that's not our function at this point in time. But thanks for bringing that up, Regent Whitworth.
Not to belabor this, but on Regent Falbo's watch as chairman and on my watch, the committee received almost, on the occasion of almost every meeting, updates on the project. A little like launching a missile. You tee it up, and then you hit the button, and it goes off appropriately, or there are bugs or worse. And those of us that have been around and have been responsible for large IT cutovers, understanding that the proof is in the pudding. When you do the cutover, that of course becomes the ultimate the ultimate test of the system. I mentioned in the committee, and it's only become recent that I've been personally sensitized to an understanding that this is the broadest, most complicated, sophisticated HOR system ever implemented anywhere in Wisconsin, in the private sector or the public sector. No question about it. And now that's, as I said yesterday, I said yesterday, is this catastrophic? No, it's not. Should we be going through this? Absolutely not. So the President has assured us that the team will see to appropriate completion.
Thank you. And I just to probably tie up what I think has been some of the discussion here is to information. As information becomes available to President Riley, myself, it will be shared very shortly thereafter with the remainder of the board. These issues that Liz has raised today, I mean, I learned on, I don't know, Monday or Tuesday of this week. And so anything remotely, like what has been reported today, and I mean remotely, will be transmitted to the entire board. And it's not going to be just with me or Regent Falbo or Regent Whitberg. It's going to be transmitted very quickly as this information has been. This was something literally I think we found out Monday or Tuesday this week. So there's not going to be any delay in getting this information to anyone on this board.
If I could just make a comment. Nobody, I don't believe, is going to walk out of here, whether it's the Board of Regents or whether it's anybody working on this, with a happy feeling. The only thing we're doing here now, and the things we've been involved in daily for the past several weeks, is to hopefully you'll walk out of here with the confidence that we're putting everything we can towards resolving it. That's really what this discussion is about. That we don't feel good about it, and we won't feel good about it until Larry and Elizabeth pop open a bottle of champagne in one of these meetings down the road. But it's my opinion, as part of the meetings that have been going on, and Fred, you can agree or disagree, that, and Jerry too, that it's in the right light, it's getting the attention, and all of the resources it needs to be resolved.
I agree with that.
I might finish my report.
You would be welcome to do that, Regent.
One of the functions of the committee in February each year is to approve the operations review and audit plan for the upcoming year. We've done that. Happy to report that the initiative to expand and enhance our work around crimes against children. You recall we have an obligation to implement new procedures and protocols on all campuses by March 1st. The system staff have received draft proposals from 11 of the institutions so far. We also accepted the report on our trust funds and how they performed in the fiscal year that ended June 30th. Net assets are now $456 million, down about $8 million at the end of the prior fiscal year. Our largest fund, the long-term fund, was virtually flat over the period. It was down 80 basis points. Our intermediate fund and the income fund returned 3% increase and 10 basis points respectively. We were disappointed with the 2012 performance, but as you've been reading in recent weeks, those results were indicative of what other institutions and endowments went through. Happily, performance this calendar year is much better. You'll recall in the legislature in 2010 we were given authority to develop a new travel policy for university campuses. separate and freestanding from the rest of state government. A lot of work has gone into this, and we've now approved the policy giving President Riley and his staff the authority to implement an appropriate travel policy across all campuses, all activities of the university, and all employees. So, on behalf of the committee, I would move adoption at this point of Resolution 12B2 and 12F.
Second. Discussion on any of those? Any of them want to be taken out? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's see, where are we going next? We're going to Regent Bartel.
Thank you,
Yes, we are.
President Smith.
Yes, we are.
The Capital Planning and Budget Committee met yesterday. We have a very brief report. To lead off, we heard a report about city and county support of UW colleges with specific reference to Sheboygan, UW Sheboygan. It was a very interesting report, and we get that kind of report, I think, annually regarding our partnership with the counties and the cities in which our colleges are located. Chancellor Cross and Vice Chancellor Wildick led off and presented Sheboygan County Administrator Adam Payne, who is a big supporter of UW Sheboygan and very genial and competent administrator. And Dean Jackie Joseph Silverstein, who is the new dean at UW Sheboygan, presented as well. Interestingly, Sheboygan has been one of the big supporters of UW colleges and that particular college. In 2012, city and county financial support for that facility was $13.2 million. Huge amount of money in the county. The total support, I'm sorry, that isn't right. That is the total support for all city and county support of UW colleges. But Sheboygan County financial support was $4.3 million of that. And that included a science center addition, fine arts and music and theater facility, physical education, athletics facility, and some major improvements in the buildings that exist. They are very proud, as all of these communities are, of the UW College that they are hosting, and they make use of the facilities as well as academic uses. So we were very pleased to hear from them. The Capital Planning and Budget Committee unanimously approved a number of resolutions. I think you have them in front of you. The Resolution 1.3.C from Madison is an expansion of a parking lot, basically a holding action until an academic building is planned for that location on West Johnson Street, a $334,000 project. Resolution 1.3.D revised. I'm not sure everybody has the revised version, but it's a lower amount. It's $89,000 building trust funds to prepare a farmer's master plan for UW River Falls and a space plan study for UW Waukesha. That's $89,000. Resolution 1.3.E authorizes construction of 11 all-agency maintenance and repair projects on 7 campuses totaling $14.5 million. And Resolution 1.3.F, brought to us by UW Colleges, authorizes construction of a $3.7 million multiple building energy conservation project at UW Waukesha. Those resolutions were passed unanimously, and I will offer them as consent resolution. Move their adoption.
I'll second.
Any one of those? Anybody want to take any of those out? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And the only other thing that the committee really did today was to hear a wonderful and very thorough description by Director of Planning Kate Sullivan on the comprehensive and sometimes arcane process that is involved with capital planning and the capital planning cycle. But it was very interesting, and I urged David Miller and Kate Sullivan to, at some point, make that presentation, or either in writing or in person, to the entire board, because it's very, we have a huge capital budget every year, and it's important that Regents understand what goes into that process, what analysis, the prioritization of projects, and the process by which the capital planning staff works with the individual campuses to identify projects, to elaborate on them, to get them to a point where they can come to the Board of Regents. So I'm hoping that sometime in the future we'll be able to do that, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you, Regent Bartel. Regent Vasquez, you ready?
Thank you very much. The Education Committee met yesterday. We had, on the one hand, light in terms of the number of items that we covered, but really a very good, in-depth discussion on several topics. We had a report from Provost Weissenberger's presentation in support of the Doctorate of Education in Career and Technical Education at UW-Stout. That was received with great interest. As a matter of fact, we had two presidents from Technical College System present, Dr. Bob Meyer from Wisconsin Indian Head Technical College, and Dr. Brian Albrecht, president of Gateway Technical College, who spoke enthusiastically about the degree program, and just really indicated that also an affirmation of what we had heard, that there is a need for this type of degree. We then also heard from, and you will receive some action items on the doctorate and then the following items, from our new director of the UW-Milwaukee Charter School Office, Celeste Myers, who is an alumna of UW-Eau Claire as well as UW-Milwaukee. And she brought before the committee the two charter school contracts that will be renewed for the full extent. One is, you'll hear more about those in a minute. And then also brought to us our first replication contract of a charter school. Essentially what that is we have a contract with a charter school. It is doing very well, and it wishes to replicate itself and provide essentially the same type of educational programming, but at a separate facility. And so that is the third of the charter school contracts that was brought before us, and we will be recommending those for approval. And finally, we also heard from Aaron Bauer of UW Extension on the option program. It really brought to our attention the progress that they have been doing up to date, as well as also some of the challenges that are being faced by the staff in the creation of that program, which I found very interesting. A couple of them being how this financial aid is going to be handled, a very unique program, as well as also questions by the accreditation bodies as to how that degree program is going to be accredited. One of the things we learned from that is that, in a sense, we are pioneers, or we are pioneering a program, and not to make more difficulty to the Human Resources Department, but we may have two new titles, two scouts, a senior scout and a scout that are out there, in Aaron and Rebecca Kiroff, who are really out there pioneering for us. There are scouts out there. We had a very, as I mentioned, very informative report on that. The Regents, you all have a written report of the Education Committee in front of you. It accurately provides a summary of the meeting. The Education Committee unanimously approved the minutes of the December 6, 2012 meeting, along with 7 resolutions, which I will now move for adoption by the full board. It should be noted that in regards to one of the charter schools, the Luz Guadalupe Charter School, I recused myself since I happen to sit on the board of directors of the United Community Center. That's the parent organization of that charter school. So the resolutions that were brought forth were Resolution 1.1.81, authorizing the implementation of the BS in nursing at UW Stevens Point. Resolution 1.1.A2, authorizing the implementation of the BSN at home in nursing at UW Stevens Point. Resolution 1.1.A3, authorizing the implementation of the BS in accounting at UW Parkside. Resolution 1.1.C1, approving the renewal of the charter school with Bruce Guadalupe Community School. Resolution 1.1.C2, approving the extension of the charter school contract with Woodlands School. And Resolution 1.1C3, approving the new charter school contract to establish Woodlands School East. Those were the, I make a motion for approval of those.
Did you mention 1.B?
The mission statement? Yeah. That was just simply for information. I was going to comment on that in a minute.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody want to get those taken out?
It was the FD.
Yes. That's the one on the mission statement?
No. It was the Doctor of Education.
Yes, I did.
Did you mention that? I didn't hear that.
That was to be included, correct?
Yes. No, you're right. I did not include that. I apologize for it. That would be the one for the doctorate.
Right.
And that would be just an include?
UW Stout.
Yeah.
So that's included
That
in
would
the
be,
packages out in front of the...
UW Stout, Doctor of
Thank you.
Education. That's correct. That's included in that.
Okay, good. All right, any of those you want taken out? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
It should also be noted that I did receive a request, and I talked to Mark, and we will, in our new format, we have not started to include a fiscal note, and so we will go ahead and, in terms of the new education programs that we're approving, it was requested that we consider going ahead and including at least a summary fiscal note. So in the future, you will be getting information on the when we are introducing new programs. The final thing also that we also discussed was, and this was for information purposes, UW Platteville is going through the process, will be initiating the process of revising their mission statement. And so we received information on that. As we know that a regent has to be present when the public hearings are held, so that will be started soon, and that was for information purposes. It's also encouraged that more than one regent, it doesn't have to be one that's present, but after they finish the public hearing and all other internal discussions, then it will be brought back to us for actual approval. And that concludes my my report.
Thank you. In terms of communications, petitions, and memorials, I'll turn it to Kevin for a minute.
Thank you. I do have one. On behalf of the UW system and this board, we'd like to extend our condolences to the family, friends, and colleagues of former UW Stout Chancellor Robert S. Swanson, who died this January 27th at his home in Rochester, Minnesota, at the age of 88. With the exception of 4 years when he served during World War II, Bob dedicated his adult life to UW Stout. He spent more than 40 years at the school, including as an undergraduate and graduate student in the late 1940s, professor and administrator from 1950 to 1972, and then as the school's sixth leader from 1972 to 1988. Bob became chancellor the year after the 1971 merger of the system. A year later, Stout State University was renamed UW Stout. During those years, he oversaw major academic enrollment and physical changes on campus while reaffirming and also redefining the institution's historic focus on applied learning. He will be remembered and missed, and I know that Chancellor Sorensen wanted to say a word or two about his predecessor. Chuck.
I
I can't add much to his accomplishments at UW-South, but Bob, I mean, you probably don't even know Bob. No one, and I got to know him very well over 25 years there, and Bob was kind of a consummate leader. He was a gentleman. He was a civil man. He's a man with phenomenal memory. He could recognize the person he met 20 years before and remember their name, their families, their connections, everything. And he did a very commendable job. They called him a steady leader, and I think during the merger years that had to be a real attribute. He started some programs that were very, very significant, both rehab, which is known internationally. He established industrial technology, which incubated a lot of new majors at UW-South. He really was the initiator of advisory boards for our programs, and that led to a very, and the outreach that we do now. When I came here in '88, they're just finishing the Case IH project in Wausau, the biggest project we'd ever done, to take 3 case plants, merge into one in Wausau, and make it work with a team of faculty and many, many, many students. So we miss Bob. He was loved by students, by faculty, by the community, and he and his wife did just a very, very fine job as chancellor. So we miss him very deeply.
Thanks, Chair. Very nice. Back to you.
Any other communication, petitions, or memorials this morning, this afternoon, I guess? All right, we can take about 10 minutes. The food is up on 19 to bring back down. Then we'll entertain a motion by Regent Fellow going to closed session.